Hi, everybody. I'm going to introduce Lisa because she may be busy. Lisa Mulvihill, psychologist at the board, and my name's Dave Clausen. I'm also a psychologist at the board. And we're going to talk to you a little bit today about two things that we've gone into high schools actually to talk to a number of students about, and that's stress management and procrastination, which feel in some ways like a funny thing to put together until you recognize how much stress procrastinating puts on you. And then, and also the fact that procrastination is one of our stress management techniques. And so we thought, we'll put them together, and it feels like something that has sort of spoken to students and that they've been able to take a couple of practical things out of. So that's what we're hoping for today, that you'll be able to take a couple of practical ideas out of this and implement them with your kids. All right. So let's get going. Oh, now it won't move, Lisa. There we go.
It figures. There we go.
There we go. All right. And so I don't know about anybody else, but I sometimes feel this way when I am thinking of all the things I have to do, and especially the things that I do not want to do. And in school, there's very little doubt that that happens. And we tend to procrastinate as a way basically of managing our emotions. So the idea behind procrastination is pretty simple, and actually extremely powerful. So we start to approach something that we need to do, and something that we don't want to do. It's unpleasant. It takes a lot of effort. There's something about it that we just don't like. And as we get closer and closer, what happens is there's a spike in negative feelings that arise. And there's a pretty easy way to make that go away. We just don't do it. We do something that we like better. And it doesn't even have to be something that we like. If you think about yourself procrastinating, I know last week I didn't want to do some writing, and I actually got a whole bunch of other things done that I really don't enjoy, but they were better than writing. And so all it needs to be is a little bit better. And what we do is we tell ourselves when we procrastinate, I will do it tomorrow. And so we actually get two positive charges from that. One is, hey, it's going to get done. And we're excited about getting this thing that we don't want to do out of the way. And so it's like, it's going to get done. It's going to get done tomorrow. And there's also a charge that comes from, and I don't have to do it right now. It's kind of like the, buy something on sale and you don't have to pay until next year. That's sort of what procrastination is. That's what it does to us. Okay. And so we get this double positive charge. That's why it happens over and over again, even though it tends to hurt us over time. And so it's not hard to understand why it's there. It's based on, sort of the emotions that are associated with doing these things that we don't want to do. Okay. Lisa, anything to add to that?
Nope, that sounds good. I think I told you this once before, that when I did what you did, I'd do other things. I'd be like, oh, this is effective procrastination because I'm doing stuff I need to, but actually I'm still not doing the thing I really need to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's we all do it, but hopefully we'll leave some strategies for people today to help a little bit. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Next one.
Hey, there we
Okay.
go.
So this is, if you ever took Psychology 101 or read anything about psychology, this may have been there. This is a law that stands firm over the years. So basically what it's saying is that, anxiety or stress is not all bad. And basically what it means is, if, let's say, you have something due tomorrow, and you're not worried about it at all. You're on the couch, you're watching Netflix, you just, there's no desire to get up and get it done. That's really low, not being very charged up. And the performance in that case is also going to be low. So we're looking at the bottom left-hand corner. Low performance happens when you have low being charged up, okay? High charged up, you can imagine a time where you had something to do, it was overwhelming, you have papers everywhere, you don't know where to start, you're very stressed out. That's being very, very highly charged up. But you'll notice that's also resulting in low performance because when you're that charged up, you just can't you can't perform very well. It's too much stress. What we really want is the medium amount. So where the hill, I guess, or the upside down U, the top of it, medium being charged up leads to the highest performance. We're charged up enough that we're going to get up off the couch, shut off our Netflix, get down to work, but not so charged up that we're really highly agitated and upset and can't think. So stress is not all bad. Sometimes it gets a bad rap. Stress is not all bad. We just have to find that kind of sweet zone where we are charged up enough to get things done.
Yeah. One of the things that's interesting about this, and we haven't usually talked about this, but I'm
Yeah.
going to freestyle a little bit, Lisa.
Okay.
Um, the emotional charge can be any number of different things. It could be stress, but it could also just be happy,
Mm.
right? It could be that, I'm not feeling much of anything at the low end and I'm feeling too much of something, or it could be whatever it is. I could be too happy, for example. But the emotional charge can be different for different people. There are individual differences here. And so this is where it becomes good to know yourself a little bit and to know, oh, you know what, I need some pressure on me, or I need to do something that's going to make me feel a little bit happy before I get going. And so, and these are things that, sort of nobody can tell you. These are things that you need to discover on your own and that your child needs to discover on their own.
Or you need to help your child with discovering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Sometimes they might not notice, and you
Yeah,
might.
yeah. Okay, so then the question becomes, what do you do? What do you do if you're too low? What do you do if you're too high? And there are all kinds of things. And I think we're mostly going to talk about sort of things that are on the too high end. But actually, you know what? I can talk just a little bit about a couple of things on the too low end. Um, One of the things that we know about emotional, like how charged up you are emotionally, is that can easily go along with physical charge. So, quite frankly, if you're too low emotionally, then doing something that increases physical charge is useful. And here I'm thinking about something that's pretty simple and straightforward. It's exercise. Get yourself moving, get yourself off the couch and go for a walk, go for a run, whatever the case may be, but something that brings the charge up a little bit. Motivation might be a bit higher, and you may be more likely to be able to sort of get going on a task.
Dave, I think that works both ways too, because I remember during COVID where I would be sitting in my desk and I'd sort of be, spinning my wheels, just taking a 10-minute break, taking a moment, coming back, kind of clearing your mind, coming back. It also works that way, I think, too, to clear that I have so much to do feeling. And then you come back and oftentimes you feel like you're more productive because you've just taken yourself down. So it's interesting how that can help sort of from both extremes, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that
Exercise
makes
is so important for so many different reasons, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And so on the too high end, we have a number of strategies. This is not exhaustive by any stretch of the imagination, but talking to somebody is one of the best ways to bring the charge down, bring yourself down into a level of stress that's more manageable. What we find is that in talking to people, you have somebody who can reflect your feeling, and that's really important. But B, you also have somebody who can help you think about things in a logical way, which can also be super useful. And so when you're in the middle of it, when it seems like it's too much, um, or when it seems like actually it doesn't matter. So we say all kinds of things to ourselves when we procrastinate. It's like, oh, there's too much. Oh, this doesn't matter. When am I ever going to use this math? This math does not matter. It's only important for class. It's not important for life. And in talking to people, we can sort of correct some of these things. It can really help us get to a place where it's like, yeah, you may never use it again, but it actually really matters for your mark, and that matters because of this. So you actually really need to do it. So talking to people is a real corrective for us in both the way we feel and in what we plan to do. And
And I think too, from the other standpoint, if you're kind of don't have the charge, talking to someone and saying what you have to do can help you be sort of accountable, right? That I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it at such and such a time. Can be helpful just to get you going. And if it's for kids we're talking about, they can make a deal with their teacher. I need you to get this part done by the such and such a date, like, and checking in and doing those sorts of things can sometimes help to make people a little more accountable.
Yep. And so on the parenting side of this, it is a real challenge to talk in a way that is helpful to your child who is putting things off and putting things off and putting things off. And so you may find yourselves that you need to talk to somebody
Yeah.
because this is not fun. And so it's pretty clear what needs to happen, usually from an adult perspective. You just need to get it done. And that message is probably in there somewhere, but it may not be the message that we want to start with. And so make sure that if your child is willing to talk to you about procrastination, that the message isn't always just, well, here we go, let's get it done. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. And let's jump to the next one. Oh, and this goes along with it. Yeah.
Yeah, it really good segue.
Thank you.
So, so I think that, when people are stressed, our kids are stressed, and lots of's going on. This time of year, it's coming towards the end of the school year. There's things due. If they're behind, it can become a mountain to climb. So sometimes, we sometimes with the best of intentions, we can invalidate by saying, you just need to get it done, right? Like Dave said. And then we're not really listening to the stress part of it, right? And so one of the things that it seems counterintuitive is to join them a little bit with where they're at, with their stress, with their worry, with their, this I'll never use this math or whatever. So it's sort of a sentence like, no wonder I feel stressed. So you just change the I to no wonder you're feeling stressed about, because no wonder you have track meets coming up, you have a music recital, you have whatever kind of, exams and tests and summatives, no wonder you're feeling grouchy about that, because, well, this is for Dave and I, because writing reports can be the most disliked part of our job. We'd rather be with kids, but no wonder I'm feeling grouchy about writing reports, because they take so long. They're a lot of work. So by doing this, you're meeting yourself, your partner, your kids, where they're at, so that then you can settle yourself down a little bit to move on to problem solving. If you jump too fast to problem solving, and people are already heightened or not heightened at all, they're not going to hear it. They're not able to hear it. And a psychiatrist who talks about a lot of similar strategies talks about naming it to tame it. Once we know how we're feeling, then we're able to do something about it. If you're just kind of flying around anxious and don't know what to do, you get that spiral. So naming it, no wonder I feel this way, because okay, now what can I do about it? And we use this with our kids in the same way. And I've used it, and I feel like in the circumstances where I've used this with my kiddo, it changes the course of the conversation. If you just say, oh, it'll be okay, you'll get it done, it ends the conversation. They don't feel listened to. They don't feel like they've been heard about their stress, and they go back to their room. But if you open up this dialogue and say, well, no wonder I get this, because there's a lot going on, then it opens up a dialogue and they can have a conversation. And then you can move to, well, how are we going to get this done? What are we going to do in our next steps? Anything to add, Dave?
Yeah. One of the reasons this is so important is remember that procrastination is an emotion management strategy. It is an ineffective emotion management strategy, but that's exactly what it is. And so it feels like it's just a behavioral thing. And it certainly has a behavioral component, and it has a thinking component too. But at the heart, it is an emotion management strategy. So we address the emotion, and then we move on to, yeah, let's think about it this way and let's get going. And so that can feel like a real challenge, but it can be a super helpful way to approach these kinds of difficulties.
And sometimes when we talk to parents about, they're like, oh, if I join it, it isn't going to make it worse. And that's not what the research is showing. It shows that you're joining with them. It can actually bring them down to a place where then they can problem solve with you. And the interesting thing, when Dave talks about it being a emotion management, it's emotion management in the moment, right? You feel better because now you go with your friends and you're not dealing with the history paper. But then it comes back and the emotion comes back, and sometimes worse because now the deadline's that much quicker, that much sooner.
The deadline's that much sooner, and there's also oh, I should have done this before component that
Yeah.
wasn't there to start with, and that also makes it worse.
Yes. So now you've got more negative thoughts, more negative feelings, and then what do you do with that?
Yep. And so then stronger negative emotion leads to avoidance again, and then we just
Yeah.
keep going on the cycle. Yeah.
So you can see how that cycle develops and how it's hard to break sometimes. And then you feel like the mountain of work that you have because you procrastinate, well, it's just not possible now, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Sometimes in the joining part, Lisa, and I've never talked about this either.
Mhm.
Sometimes in the joining part, what I've done with people is I've said, wouldn't it be nice if this just went away?
Yeah.
Like, what do you wish, right? And just get them to talk about it, like in this, and then that can actually help a little bit with the problem solving part of it, because eventually you come around to, yeah, oh, that would be nice, wouldn't it? But it's not going away, is it? Yeah. So then what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And and spending that time, again, it just sort of acknowledges that, yeah, this sucks. It's too bad you
Mhm.
have to do it, but yeah, here we go.
Yeah. And what would it be like when it's done?
Yeah.
So great,
Yeah.
right?
That that's another thing
Yeah.
to yeah, help them focus on a bit. And here we're talking about where you direct your attention and where you direct your thoughts. Okay. If you think about what's it going to be like when you're done, what you're doing is you're shifting your attention from this pile of stuff that I don't want to do in front of me right now to what's going to be like, what's my future self going to experience. And when it's done, it's like, oh, there's some freedom. And so paying attention to your thoughts, paying attention to where you direct your attention, I guess we'll probably get there in a bit,
Mhm.
but paying attention to your thoughts, like, life's going to be good when this is done. And sometimes we can have some really helpful thoughts, and sometimes we get the unhelpful thoughts. And the unhelpful thoughts, again, I think we've listed off a couple of them. I'm never going to use this. This doesn't matter. This is unimportant. Oh, who cares about this, Mark? Like, who cares what happens in this class? All of these kinds of things are unhelpful ways we think about things. And then, we need to listen closely to them. That's why we've got this picture, with the hand to the ear. We got to listen closely to what we're saying to ourselves and say, wait a minute, this is pushing me in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and I'll use my taxes example. Like, I do not like doing my taxes. And as soon as, we get to, the end of February and I know all the things are gonna come, I hate doing ta and then I have to catch myself because if I keep telling myself I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I'm not gonna be very motivated to do it. So I do my taxes in pieces. I get all my stuff together. And then at the end, I give myself a little treat because that's enough to motivate me to get it done. And does it ever feel good to get it done? So we all do this, I guess, is the point. But learning these strategies to catch yourself before the little hill becomes a ginormous mountain of work is really important because it gets hard. It gets harder and harder when you see the mountain of work. And we see students who get themselves into that position, coming up to this point of the year where they haven't been handing in assignments, and now the assignments have, the little hill of assignments has become a huge mountain.
Yeah. And so one of the ways as parents that you can use this is you can just ask them, hey, what are you saying to yourself about this? What are you saying to yourself about all these assignments that are left? Is it helping you or is it hurting you? And having that can be a really useful conversation to have, because along the way, then after you hear what they're thinking, you say, well, is there a different way we can think about that might actually help you get moving instead of make you feel stuck?
I think thoughts are one of the most powerful things that we can notice because we have tens of thousands of them every day. And it doesn't mean you're thinking you're like being alert to every single thought you have, but just being aware that there's certain things that can be helpful and there's certain things that can be more harmful.
Sorry, and I started on this one before. I was a little
Yeah, that's all
confused
right.
about which slide we were on, but yeah, our attention, our attention and where we direct our attention determines a lot about both what we feel and what we do. And so it's very easy to get distracted from things you don't want to do. Okay. When I'm writing reports, I can look at emails for a long time. My attention for emails is fantastic. And then, oh, this thing over here is really important, and this thing over here. And your attention jumps around from one thing to another. I can be quite focused because I'm doing a good job of avoiding what I don't want to do. But turning your attention to the thing that needs to be done, and also including what Lisa said, turning your attention to what it is like at the end. That can be really helpful and motivating to get going on the thing that you have to do. And so we spend a lot of time focusing our attention on how to avoid what we don't want to do. And just turning it to, you know what? There's this report, it needs to get done, and it needs to get done for this and this and this reason. So there you're combining both the thinking and the attention spotlight. So here I go. I'm going to focus on this report right now.
And when you're talking to your kids about this, we're not implying that this is easy. This is
No.
not easy stuff. But I was talking to a group of parents yesterday, and we were talking sort of about modeling and how important is, we go about our day and, pay our bills, do our things, whatever. But we don't often talk about or model for kids. Wow, like I had a lot of stuff to do today. It was really hard to get this done, or I don't like doing my taxes. This is how I go about doing it. So that, we can model. Yes, sometimes stuff is hard, but this is, you gotta learn these life skills to manage and get stuff done. If you don't do your taxes, that's a problem, right? So I think that, you know, instead of feeling like you have to model, I have it all together all the time, it's sort of like, wow, this is really hard. How am I going to do this? And, sometimes it takes sitting down beside your kiddo and working through how is this going to get done? What can I do to help? And get their input too. Because if you start saying, oh, do this, try this, I think they need to be a collaborative part of the solution. Because at the end of the day, it's their work and they have to get it done. All right. Okay. Well, I use this all the time, all the time. So now we're talking about action. How do we do it? Like we're talking about, oh, we notice our thoughts, we notice our emotions. Okay, now the rubber's got to hit the road. So what I often do, I'll use report writing again because it's a challenging part of what we do. I'll start with one thing. I'll start with the thing in the report that has to be done, but maybe it's a little bit easier or more, rote for me to do at this point. So I'll start with filling in some numbers, or I'll start with filling, different things. So that gets me going. And sometimes what I find is once I'm going, I get on a roll. If I don't get on a roll, then I work in chunks. I divide big projects up into little pieces. Because if you look, so I'll use the example of maybe a student who's let lots of work go, and now they've got 10 assignments due. How do you do that? Well, you've got to break it up into chunks. You can't try to get them all done at once. It's impossible. So break, and then not only break the different assignments into chunks, but the actual assignment you're working on, break it into parts, and then do one part at a time. The other thing that is extremely helpful for me is I book a time. I book a time, I write it down in my calendar to do it, because that's sort of an accountability for me. And then I book out the time that I need. I don't book anything else. And that's the time I'm using to get that done.
Yep. Yep. And I have to say, I use the exact same things. And usually when I start with one thing, that thing is extremely small. So when I start writing a report and I don't feel like it, sometimes I just say to myself, open up the report template, put the child's name in.
Mhm.
And that's literally how small it is. Put the name in. And it's like, okay, yeah, now I can put in their birth date. I can do that. Right. So sometimes, the start with one thing isn't, well, write this half of the essay. The one thing is super small, and it's so small that it's like, oh yeah, of course I can do that. And that's sort of what you're shooting for.
This is our summary, right?
Yeah, this is our summary.
So really what we talked about here is recognizing our feelings, right? How do we do that? We talk to someone, we validate for ourselves, we validate for others, right? Dave talked about thoughts, about where we direct our attention and being aware of our thoughts, whether they're helpful or unhelpful. And then we finished off just now with behavior. Get started on one simple thing, work in chunks, book time. And in the middle of this triangle, you can see that they're all connected, is being aware of these things. We can go through life letting all these things happen to us, but if we're not aware, it's really hard to put something in place to help with it.
Yeah. So an example of that, I mean, I know that I will put report writing off. I absolutely know that that's the case. So I can predict, okay, I'm done what I need to, or I've got something I can write down. I can predict this is going to be hard. So what am I going to do about it? The self-awareness, the recognizing it again and again and again. Well, and I tend to use the same things. I tend to get started and work in chunks for the most part. But just recognizing, here it comes, this is going to be hard, so maybe I need to have an extra cup of tea before I get going because I'm not going to feel like doing this. All right. And so just having a little bit of awareness of what's coming is super useful.
Yeah. And I think the very last slide, do we have a very last slide with some
I think we have
suggestions?
two more actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are things to watch for. Cramming really doesn't work at all. And if you're feeling like you're starting to panic, if you remember our upside down you with the performance and the how revved up you are, notice that, do something that works for you to bring you back into that middle ground so that then you can be productive.
And then I'm gonna put in a plug for this book.
Yeah.
The first thing here, Timothy Pitchell wrote a book called Solving the Procrastination Puzzle, and it is outstanding. And if you think you're going to procrastinate reading a book, this book is the easiest book in the world to use or to read. It is literally, I believe, 60 pages, and it is full of things to help yourself with procrastination. So I would strongly suggest that if procrastination is a problem and it is causing more stress for you, that's an excellent place to start. A bunch of other resources here as well. Anxiety Canada has all kinds of useful things. And then in terms of talking to people, here 24/7 Front Door and the Kids Help Phone are all good resources to know about if it feels like things are getting pretty big and you're not quite sure what to do with it.